Thank you for tuning into another episode of Hunkered Down with Seth. We have one of my favorite people on the planet, a guy I've been good friends with for well over a decade, and one of the funniest stand-up comics you could ever hear. The one, the only, the yin to my yin's brother Mike, Derek Sheen. Derek, always great talking to you.
Oh, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That last part's debatable,
Yeah.
but
All right, so let's get the credits out of the way.
but
You have plenty of albums available to stream and to listen to. Where could they pick it up?
I mean, just go to iTunes or go to Spotify. Everything's on Spotify. The
Yep.
new one comes out on the 24th because the last one came out during a fucking national emergency and just got dropped, and then this one's coming out during a national emergency. So why not? I just release albums for no reason, anytime,
Yeah.
at the worst possible time.
Let's see. And
So
some of your previous albums are Gay for Pussy and Baby Dick. Yeah.
none of those are true.
Really?
No, like
Wait.
let's see, my album have Holy Drivel
Holy Drivel.
and Tiny Idiot,
Tiny Idiot.
which is Brian Cook's fault, and then the last one was Disasterbation.
Okay. So, wait a second. So, let's go back. I distinctly remember you recording a special, maybe for an album, maybe not, called Gay for Pussy.
Yes,
And,
I did. I tried it. That was the very first time I tried to record an album, and it was awful. It was awful. I never released it because it was just garbage.
and I can tell.
And also, like, it was before I had my throat surgery.
Uh,
And so even my physical voice was just unlistenable. And I still have it. Occasionally I pop it in, and then I just want to drive my car into moving train tracks. But it was bad. I hadn't found my voice. I think a lot of comics. I did the same thing that a lot of newer comics do. Is you get ahead of your skis and you go, I need to record an album, even though you don't know why. You just feel like I got to have something.
yeah.
And I think I wanted an album just so I could sell something at shows, which is the worst reason to record an album. And I did it, and then I was like, oh, this is terrible. And I'm glad I never sent it out for release because I think it wouldn't have helped my situation at all.
On the
Like, I'm already a nobody, but that would have made me even more of a nobody.
On the flip side, though, with us with stand up, I always thought you dive right in, you do stuff before you're ready, because that'll get you ready. If
Yes,
you feature before you're ready to
you're right.
feature, you headline the smaller rooms before you're ready to headline, and that way, you put your feet to the fire.
Oh, I 100% agree. I mean, it helped. It did help. The experience helped me a lot because it let me know what to look for, what problems to assess, and also how to organize my thoughts into into an album format. And it also made me question why I was doing it. When it was done, I had to realize that the reason I was doing it was more out of ego and less out of having a legitimate collection of pieces to share with people. And I'm glad I didn't send it out, but it did teach me a lot. But oh my God, like Holy Dribble was great because it made sense. It was a whole album.
Yeah.
I think by the time that was ready, I had a better sense of how to craft an hour. I'm not
Oh.
saying I had a great sense, but I had a better sense.
Oh yeah, and really nobody has a. You
But
could
I
ask
learned,
the top of the
you
top.
learn from those experiences, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. And
Oh
even
yeah,
even like
it's all about listening to yourself and trying to find out which voice is being honest with you. But yeah, Gay for Pussy, that was an idea. I wanted to do it, and then I had a whole bunch of comics get mad at me because they thought the title was pretty awful, and I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. And then and that was partly. I think all of it was just that whole experience was just that was that was my professional immaturity hadn't been tampered down yet, and I hadn't been thinking rationally. And I'm glad I never released it. Holy shit, that thing is so bad. Oof.
Yeah,
Just
and I remember I was at it was at Chop Suey, right? It was a laugh
yeah.
hole, and it started out terrible because the person I'm not gonna be negative and call name names, but the person you chose to host was just god awful and
Oh yeah.
made fun of the name of it, but not in a funny way. And then since you was host, you had a bunch of female comics before you, uh, and just everybody hated the host so much that did, that did not it went over like a Led Zeppelin, but like Led Zeppelin now.
It went over like a Led Zeppelin tribute band.
Yeah,
You're right. I was really conscious. I will say this. I was very conscious of making sure that I had representation on the shows. So I made sure I had mostly women opening, and I had good representation of the queer community. Because even back then, I was like, those are people I want to prop up. I want to prop women up and make sure that they're getting due diligence. Because on Laugh Hole, they were and they weren't. There was a big internal fight about that, and I won't say who was the one that was really in the women aren't funny camp, but one of those guys was in that camp, and it was really hard to push them to put funny women on the stage. So we had to find ways to circumlocute that and have booking our own showcases like that or album recordings was a great way to go. Like it's my show and I'm responsible for it, so let me book who I want. But yeah, oof, boy, you brought back some memories. That's funny.
oh, definitely.
I mean, it was fun. My buddy Eric Corson from the Long Winters engineered it as a gift, and I'll say this: I do still have the masters, and it sounds great, but the album's terrible. The material itself is dog shit, and I had I think it was right before Jesus Christ. I'm 50, so this would be 2000.
9, yeah.
Or 2010, and it was right before I had throat surgery, and so I had my tonsils removed at 41, which is a terrible idea at that age. But I had like an opening in my throat that was barely the size of a lentil bean, and so and constantly it was always choked off and coughy and phlegmy, and my voice is just awful. It just sounds like someone who won't clear their throat.
Yeah.
Like some of the songs just float right there, and you're like, just cough for me. So, but the other one, the Holy Grail, came out great. So I'm glad I waited, and that was the representation. That was the first representation that people got of me, which is I think better.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still a nobody, but at least I have good stuff under my belt. So when I die, I'll have a good posthumous catalog.
Yeah, and one of my favorite album covers, regardless of all time, by our friend Mark Allender.
Allender did such a great job. He did that one, and he did Disasterbation.
Oh.
Which are both awesome. And then Barry Blankenship did Tiny Idiot, which I really love because it's very reserved, but it's kind of where I stepped into that color palette that's now my thing, which is just hot pink and bright yellow, and that's now a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Little conceptual continuity. And then Tom Neely, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but Tom does a comic book called Glenn and Henry.
Oh, yeah.
Which is pretty popular. Yeah, and it's Glenn Danzig and oh god damn it. So, my brain is just mush right now because I've been home the entire time. But it's really great. It's really fun. It's black and white, and it's Henry Rollins and Glenn Danzig, and they're gay lovers who are also detectives.
Yeah.
It's great. And he did the new cover, and the new cover, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's pretty badass.
Yeah.
It's one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time.
It's funny you bring up Danzig because the guest I had 2 days ago, Virginia Jones, we had a really fun conversation about Danzig on that episode. So. Yeah.
Yesterday I had a Spotify playlist going while we were driving, and everybody always compares Danzig to Elvis. Like, they've always made that, like, he's kind of got an Elvis thing. And a cover of Lonesome Tonight came on that Danzig did. And I was like, fucking really? Danzig did a bunch of Elvis covers? And then before I could dig into it, my wife was like, nope. Like, no. And I was like, do you hate Danzig? She's like, fuck Danzig. She's like, I like this song. I don't want to hear this son of a bitch ruin it. I was so heartbroken, but I was like, I can't disagree with you.
No.
All right.
That's one of those conversations with the wife that you're like, I'll just take the L and move on. It's not worth it.
Yep. It's not worth it. That, you choose your battles.
Yep.
Do I want to die on a hill for fucking Glenn Danzig? Nope.
No.
And she's right.
Yeah.
And she was right. I was only listening to it ironically.
I'm in 100% agreement with her. So. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but apparently with this quarantine, I've noticed on your social medias you've been moving a little back towards your music background. You you have you're no well. Let me get my thoughts in order. That would help. Good hosting, Seth. Um, you have been a very good musician for decades. Used to be in progressive rock bands, and now you're starting to return to that.
I'm just dabbling. I mean, I miss it, and also I'm home, and comedy. I was talking to Emmett about this the other day because Emmett was. We were having a discussion about online comedy right now, which I am. I started right out of the gate. I had like a comedy show in my living room, like day one. I was like, I'm doing it. And then I put on another one about a week later, and then I realized this is the worst idea. Like, I just soured on it immediately. Like, the whole idea of doing comedy in a vacuum for no audience, I was like, this is what desperate people do to get attention, and I just can't in good conscience condone it anymore. And we were having a discussion about that because he was like, I'm going to do some online stuff, and I was like, I can't, I won't. I'm done. I'm not doing it. It's not fun. It's not fun, it's for monologists. That's what you do, is you get on and you just talk without end. But the energy of comedy is what always drew me to it, and that includes an audience. An audience needs to be there for me. And that's me. So I miss it. But at the same time, I was like, well, I'm not fucking doing that. And music can exist in a vacuum. It can,
Yep.
It doesn't require an audience. It just requires a listener. That's it. And I love it. It's a very different form of art, and it allows me to still express myself, but in a very different way. And so, yeah, I've been chasing it. And also, I'm doing Bunker Show video, which is just bands' videos. I'm just hosting like an old school public access style show on my YouTube channel. Every week I do a half hour, and it's just band videos. It's like it's getting out of your house and going to a show and going to see a band, because I feel like that's one thing I really miss. And now that I don't have it available to me, I really miss it.
Oh, definitely.
It's really hard. So, and I feel like we all, living in Seattle especially, we really took it for granted, live entertainment.
Oh, for sure.
And when you don't have it, you're like, fuck. And I think as a comic, you can relate to this. You really do, when you're doing stand-up, that's all you do.
Yeah.
You don't really have time to go to a theater, or nor do you have the energy. And you go see a band, but you stand there for 10 minutes and you're like, ugh, it's loud and I'm tired, and if I have a night off, why am I spending it here?
Yeah.
And you just kind of get burned out on performance art. And so I immediately, within like 2 weeks, I started getting like, I gotta fucking see a band. So I miss it. I bought a drum set and set that up in my living room. Little electronic drums, so not acoustic drums. I would get fucking launched out of here immediately. But
totally.
But I got some electronic drums. I got my guitar set up. But I also can't play guitar right now because I have a bone. I have a growth in my wrist that's precancerous, and it's basically I can't close my thumb all the way. So, because it's just intensely painful. It feels like we thought I fractured it, but it's not a fracture. It's actually a tumor of some sort in my bone. So we got to get, but I can't do any surgery. I was supposed to do the surgery in January, but that all went haywire. And so now, no chance. So I can't really play guitar, which is really frustrating.
Yeah.
But I can play drums, so I'm doing that. And going through my friends' band videos and cultivating a little playlist every week and just putting it out there for fun, just for shits and giggles. I'm not doing anything. If I can raise a little money for somebody, that's partly what I'm doing every week.
Wow, that hand.
Trying to come up with the. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say that hand thing. I heard some whispers, but it turns out the tumors are true.
Oh, you son of a bitch! That's so good.
Yeah.
You're so good at that. You really are. That's a gift. It's a gift from God.
I know. It's such a curse also, because some bad news comes in.
Your puns are far from a curse, my friend.
No,
it's good stuff.
I've driven people to wits' ends. I've pissed off family members at funerals. I've ruined weddings. It's not ruined weddings like the actual wedding, but just I've made so many family members pissed just during the vows, and
yeah,
it's like.
Did you ever hear about Drucker's wedding?
Oh, tell me,
Did you ever
please.
hear about Mike Drucker's wedding? It's so funny. His brother Daniel, who's also really funny but very, very dry. But Mike got married before he moved to Seattle. Like, he moved up here with his wife at the time.
Yeah.
And they're divorced now. But at his wedding, he had his brother do a speech. And his wedding was mostly comedians. And then her family, who apparently weren't a big fan of Mike's to begin with.
Oh.
But his brother started doing a speech, and only the comics recognized it right out of the gate as Pacino's speech from Any Given Sunday. That was his fucking wedding speech that he started immediately. Was like, marriage is a game of inches. And then for 7 straight minutes, he delivered verbatim the entire speech from Any Given Sunday, which half the room is just in fucking tears, and he was just delivering it straight faced. And Mike's like, oh my God. But her family was like, fuck these people. Oh my God.
Jeez.
Oh, it's so great. It's one of my favorite stories. He was just, his brother Daniel tells it. It's so great because he knows the speech inside and out, but it's also probably the worst speech to give at a wedding.
Yeah. Well.
He just turned the word football, he changed it to marriage. And it's all about getting divorced. It's about losing. But,
God.
Comedy. Some people do it well, and then there's me.
Yeah. Well, you've carved out a little niche for yourself. You've met the right people and sort of found the right following. Meanwhile,
yeah, I got lucky. I've been very fortunate to get to do what I've done.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky, especially considering how little I gave back in the beginning and how demonstrably terrible of a person I was when I was starting comedy.
Yeah.
So the fact that good things happen, I'm like, well, I won't question it, but I'm very grateful in my later years that I was fortunate enough to not fuck everything up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Back then, even with how just ignorant and dumb I was with comedy, there were some things that you would do that I would be like, "Are you sure? Really?"
Oh God, buddy.
Yeah.
I think I was textbook. Like they should write down all of my mistakes, and that should be the textbook that new comics have to go through. This is what you don't do.
Yeah.
In stand up.
I mean,
watch the first 5 years of Sheen and don't do any of these things.
I mean,
learn from it.
The forward should just be every time you're in the Seattle comedy competition.
I will say, I did have. I was clueless and oblivious to everything.
Yep.
But I did have the best time being the worst. And not even in retrospect, I think at some point I grabbed onto it and was like, I'm just going to ride this. Being the worst comic in this competition the whole week, I'm going to have fun doing it.
Yeah.
And then, although I will say when I did San Francisco, I had a little bit more maturity under my belt, and I had a blast. And I made it to the semifinals, but oh man, I mean, that was when I just decided to let go and have fun and not worry about it. And I think that's a great lesson for stand-up in general.
Yeah.
Let go of your ambition, let go of all that shit, and just try to have fun.
Yeah, but
it's a weird job, you know.
Yeah, on the flip side though, there's people who just do the stuff by the numbers and get to the point where they're headlining it. Like the guy who won my year, damn, what was his name? This is gonna bother me because he's a great guy and he's so funny, but he was one of those who just like the first night he got second, Mike Baldwin. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, so Mike got second the first night, and for the rest of the competition, didn't get lower than first every night, and to the point where he just said, "Look, I just been doing this a long time, and I just do the same stuff, except for one night, which was the last night of the first round, where he did his merchandise set, got first, and sold 3 shirts."
Oh my God, merchandising at the competition.
Yeah.
Whew, man, that is, those are embarrassing moments.
Yep.
You look back on, I hope. But I remember that Ron told me I think this is the very first year I ever did it, which was, I shouldn't have done it. I think I was an alternate, that somebody dropped out and I got picked, and Peter called me, and I'd only been in the scene like 3 years. There's no reason I should have been doing that competition. But I showed up and did the first 2 nights and just ate dog shit every night. And do you remember, was it Pavel?
Probably.
Pavel was the Russian comic that didn't know English very well, but he was super misogynistic.
Yeah.
Okay, so Pavel was also in the competition as an alternate. Or no, he did it the year before. I don't want to get this confused. He did it the year before as an alternate. And tanked miserably, right?
Yeah.
2 nights into the competition, Ron Reed comes up to me and goes, I don't know how to tell you this, but I figured I better share it. But just so you know, and this might hurt your ego a little bit, but that might be what you need to hear. Pavel Simsa did way better than you did. And that shouldn't even happen. He's like, you did worse than Pavel. Just so you know. And that was the moment when that crushed me.
Yeah.
So hard. But then, a few days later, I realized, oh, man, I sucked worse than Pavel. And then, for some reason, because I'm a new comic and every little thing is a credit, I was like, well, I guess I can turn that into a win. Wow, I actually did worse than Pavel. That's kind of that's a feather in my cap. Yeah. I thought that was a feather in my cap.
No.
Oh, man. Yeah, I did worse than the guy who couldn't speak English.
Yeah, it gets to the point, in comedy, when you're young, you're like, oh, I could turn bad into good. And then as you get older, you're like, no, bad is bad, regardless.
Bad is bad.
Bad is bad.
I was so bad at this, I was like, that seems like a pretty good thing. That's a feather in my cap I can take around and tell people. Wasn't it Jeff Rousseau? I used to use his thing as a blurb. He had it was in print. I think it was in the fucking Stranger when they did, or the Seattle Weekly, they did a thing on local stand-up. And Jeff dropped my name in there. But what he said is there's also comics like Derek Sheen who can just talk for 25 minutes and never, ever get to a punchline. And I was like, that's my blurb. So,
no.
It was not. Oh, boy, I just really clamored for any attention. And how they tell you, this, they say, there's no such thing as bad press. All press is good press.
No.
Nope, wrong. Wrong. There's bad press.
There's bad press. It's just the scale of bad press.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Nailed it.
I remember my year in the competition. I didn't get better than 14th out of 16. However, I did sell 2 jokes of mine, so I ended up in front. So I sold one to Hunkered and one to another guy. So it's like I did bad, but I made money.
Oh my God. I did. I mean, I guess in retrospect, I'm glad that I failed into some friendships, and that I guess that was the thing that I really took out of it in the long run, is that I got to meet. I still am friends with everybody that I was in that competition with.
Yeah.
Like I got to make friends that were patient with me and let me fuck up and fail upwards until I got to the point where I was actually okay at this, but I didn't get abandoned, which was nice. I still had peers, but that was the one thing I took out of it. Like that's how I met Drucker, and that's how I met Marcus and Alex Cole, and just people that I talk to all the time, or that I got a chance to tour with, or that I got a chance to grow as a comic because of. So I was very fortunate. And there were good people. And Rory, I mean, Jesus, that's holy shit.
Yeah, I'm just happy
all good folks.
I'm just happy that my year, same thing, but none of them went on to be like anything super big. Like nobody's had a Netflix special, so I'm cool. Nobody's been super popular.
Oh man, I think everyone in my San Francisco year has sailed past me onto fame in ways that I can't even calculate. And I'm grateful, but I'm like, okay, good for you guys. I'm glad I got to be there. I'm glad I got to watch everybody hit the ladder. But now, like, I think that would have bothered me years ago. But I'm glad that what a weird, fun thing I get to do. And then I know famous people. That's great.
Yeah.
It's so fun to watch my friends do better, like do well and succeed, and just getting to watch that trajectory that's I think where you have to change your altitude has to adjust to those things, and you don't have to learn to be grateful. I think you just have to accept that things happen when they're supposed to.
Oh, definitely.
Not when you try to force them under undue stress and will, and they're worth more when that happens. But I think I could have been. I think I could have been real bitter and shitty about all the missteps that I made, but fuck that. They got me to where I am, and I'm fucking so much happier and funnier and better as a result. It was a shitty trip.
Yeah. And basically if there's a comic that's had a great time throughout their entire journey, there's only 2 reasons for that. 1, they're on radio, or 2, they are just completely oblivious and are happy featuring. They're like,
yeah.
But
Tony Kameen said one time, and it's still in the back of my head. But Tony one time, he was in the Marijuana Logs and toured pretty often with Doug Benson and Posehn, and he was part of that San Francisco crew. But one time, this is a while ago, so I don't know if he still feels this way, but it really did change my attitude. But we were talking about the fact that, he and I and a few other comics we get an opportunity to work with our really famous friends. We get an opportunity to work for them, to open for them. Sometimes we go on the road with them. And he was like, there are people that would drive them crazy over time.
Yeah.
That's all they get to do is they get to open for people who are far more famous than them, and they'll never hit that plateau. They just won't. But he goes, but if you look at it this way, we get paid to just hang out with our famous friends, and all we have to do is 25 to 30 minutes a night. That's it. He's like, why would you want more responsibility? Yeah, maybe we're not famous. Maybe we don't get a ton more money. But our job is to hang out with our friends and get paid to work for 25 to 30 minutes a night.
Oh, yeah.
How fucking hard is that? He's like, because at the time he's older than me. He was like, I'm happy with that.
And
Because
I think
I'm already at a place where I get to justify fucking off and getting high every night with my friends.
Yeah, and I think he's still older than you.
He's still older. He remains older than me.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's like
but it
Bill...
was such a great way to look at it, and I was like, maybe that's part of that ambition I think I needed to get rid of, is that feeling that anger and that jealousy and that bitterness where I should be somewhere that I'm not.
Yeah.
And I have to take inventory of the things that I need to be grateful for. Like, holy fuck, man, I get to go out. Well, I did anyways until the world stopped spinning. But I got to go out with my friends, and they were like, I got to get a hotel and fly into town, and I got to make them laugh. I got to do a couple sets a night in front of my buddies, and afterwards we'd get high and we'd talk and make each other laugh. And I'm like, what am I bitching about? Like, what am I sad about?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody would give their eye teeth for that experience. So I've been extremely fortunate, and I think that is, I think that's, I lacked that ability to sort of be able to inventory those experiences realistically and remove my ego from them.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm so lucky, so as many fuck-ups as I've had in the past, now I can at least look back and go, well, at least I didn't blow everything, at least now I have a sense of gratitude.
Yeah, it's like Bill Burr, when asked why he never had a sitcom, he says, you never want to be the guy who owns the boat. You want to be the guy who brings the six-pack to the boat, and he's the hero.
Yep. Oh, that's perfect. That's the perfect way to put it.
Yep. And
yeah, leave it to Bill Burr.
Did I ever tell you my Bill Burr story?
No.
Okay. So I was in the improv lab, and the smaller room of the Improv Hollywood, and I saw him in the back of the room, and there was a show going on. So I walk up to him, and I lean in and I whisper, since there's a show going on, "Hi, I'm Seth. I'm a big fan of your work." And he just goes out loud in his Boston accent, "So you're a close talker."
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, I got burned by Bill, and I love it. And I love him even more for it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It's a great burn.
Yeah. So rounding third and coming home, just to wrap this up, after all this craziness is over, what are some plans? What do you want to do? Because I know you were planning a trip to LA where we're going to hang out and eat tacos. But what are you planning to do after all this?
I mean, I'll still be. So I'm filming I'm filming a movie, but it started as a short, and now I think since we've been in quarantine, they've managed to get all the funding to secure it to make it a longer film. So fingers crossed.
Wow.
But we're going to reschedule that for probably, if all goes well, maybe the fall. So I'll be in LA for a little while for that.
Oh, nice.
I hope. That's the only thing on my books. Everything else is canceled. And I'm not rebooking because I don't know when anything's going to happen, and also I don't want to take any chances.
Yeah.
I got a 93-year-old man. I gotta be in good shape for, as well as a wife, and I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get this shit because I'm the fucking person that'll die from it.
Yep.
Like, that's just the way that's gonna. But the way my health goes, oh my God, I'll get it and lose one of my lungs, or have a leg amputated, or both. It'll just be something. So I just have the worst health luck. But I do want to get back out. I don't know what stand-up's going to be like. I don't know.
No.
I have no idea what stand-up's going to be like when this is over, or whether we're going to have clubs, because I think a lot of places aren't going to recover.
No.
So
And
I'm going to be there. I mean, I know that regardless of how heavily hit the restaurant industry has been, there will still be tacos in Los Angeles, and we will eat them.
Oh, definitely.
But I can't make a guess as to when I'm going to get back out there. But I hope when we get our new schedule and we're able to lock down my dates, then I'll be there for a couple weeks or more, doing stand-up hopefully, and eating tacos with my buddies and catching up. But no plans. I mean, they really put the irons on anybody's career movement. So even with an album coming out, I can't tour in support of it, and I have no way to promote it. And
Nope.
Fuck it. I'm gonna write. I'm not doing it. I'm not writing any material right now. Because why? I want to wait till it's over and see what my energy is. But I never did that anyways. I never wrote. I always say writing, but you know what I mean. I go on stage and see what works and what doesn't work. Yeah. So I can't write while I'm home.
There's only one thing that you don't do, and that's shut up. So I know you'll definitely be, doing something. So.
It'll probably be talking. That's a great way to wrap it up, right? Like that's your wrap up.
That's my wrap up. You'd never shut your yap.
I can't. I have been robbed of human contact for 4 weeks, Seth. Why can't we make this show 2 hours? I need all the time. I need all the time for my brain to start working again.
Oh, I would love that, but technology constraints for me.
I appreciate you doing this. Is great. I'm glad that you're doing something like this, and I'm glad I get to be a part of it. I know that the last couple of weeks I've been trying to do it, and just life has kept knocking my legs out from under me. So.
Oh, definitely. I just do this to keep my sanity. So.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God it's not for money.
No, who needs that?
It's you know what? The finances are a fallacy. The whole idea of an economy is fake anyways.
Yeah. In the end, we start from nothing and we return to nothing.
That's right. Here, you know what? If I had a drink, I would just tip your glass, because here's to being on the other side of the dirt for one more day, my friend.
Let's do it. All right. So we're going to end the episode on that. So thanks for joining us. I really had a good time on this episode.